Yes, guys, welcome back to 11 Yanks Breakdown, where we discuss all things USMNT. I'm Pete Douthit, and today we're going to be talking about 7 different tactics that are going to help the US qualify for the World Cup in Qatar in 2022. So as we know, World Cup qualifying will resume this September, and after the disaster of Trinidad and Tobago in 2017, in which the US failed to qualify for the World Cup in Russia, the US will be back with an entirely different squad. Yes, it's a new squad, it's a new coach, it's a new US soccer president, it's a new leadership group. The only thing that hasn't changed for the US is CONCACAF. As we know, CONCACAF is a unique animal, both on the field and off the field. On the field, both the US and Mexico will go to many teams that will do everything they can to frustrate you. On the field, both the US and Mexico will go to many teams who will do everything they can to frustrate. They will foul, they will fake injuries, they will waste time, they will use dirty tactics, they will kick you and pinch you and punch you when the referee's not looking. The grass is often long, the field is bumpy, and the referees in CONCACAF are truly awful. Off the field, the fans will gather outside your hotel the night before a game and play drums and chant songs all night, just in the hopes that you won't get a good night's sleep, and it will give their team a little bit of an edge on game day. But on the field, the most important thing they will do is park the bus. As you probably know, parking the bus refers to a team who wants to sit back, defend in front of their goal, and frustrate. Metaphorically, they park a bus in front of their goal. And breaking down teams like that, particularly on a difficult field in difficult conditions, isn't always easy. Now, the US has always struggled with this problem of trying to break down CONCACAF teams on the road. However, we haven't had the level of players that we have now, who are playing week in and week out for some of the world's best teams. So having better, more technical players playing at a higher level will make it easier for the US in some ways. At the same time, breaking down an away team in CONCACAF who are putting 11 men behind the ball and sitting in their own third and daring you to come out and score and are going to do everything they can to frustrate you isn't easy, regardless of the level of your players. So I'm going to show you 7 different tactics that I think the US should embrace in order to be successful at breaking down these teams and finding holes when a team parks the bus away in CONCACAF. Before we get to it though, if you're new to this channel, welcome. We've got new videos every Tuesday afternoon. Smash that bell notification, guys, because I'm going to start putting out extra videos from time to time, and you don't want to miss any of them. All right, here we go. Okay, so the first tactic is what I call playing in the pockets. Now, when you look at this graphic, don't get too hung up on the formation the US is playing or these names. These names are just here because that's the lineup I'm going with for now. Obviously, there's other names that could be here. It's interchangeable, but these names are just here as placeholders. Focus on the tactics. The first one is called playing in the pockets, and that's because oftentimes when a team is defending, they defend in 2 lines. Costa Rica does it in a 4-5-1, but generally it is a 4-4-2 or some variation of a 4-5-1 or 5-4-1. What this means is that there will be space between the midfield line and the defensive line, and that's where your attackers, particularly your very technical attackers, need to play. Teams without technical players struggle to play between these lines because you've got limited time and limited space to receive the ball, and oftentimes you have to use individual technique in order to get out of tight spaces. The US has those players now, and playing between the pockets will allow players like Pulisic, Reyna, Musa, McKennie, Sargent, and others to receive the ball on the half turn and play each other through the lines. The second one is dynamic off-ball movement. Oftentimes, when you're confronted with 11 men standing in front of the goal, it's easy to work your position into sort of a semicircle, with the attacking team passing the ball around this semicircle, looking for space, but not always finding it. Oftentimes, what will happen is one of the wingers or fullbacks will get frustrated and just end up crossing the ball from a deep position, which isn't very good against a packed defense because there's very little space for you to find a player. What's important here is that your attacking players are constantly moving when they don't have the ball. You cannot be static when you're trying to break down a packed defense. Moving dynamically when you don't have the ball forces the defending team to adjust to your positioning, your movement, and you can pull them out of position and create spaces and holes that you can then exploit to get a shot on goal. We saw an example of this in the November friendly when the US thrashed Panama 6-2. There was a sequence where the ball popped out of the box to Tyler Adams. Weston McKennie was standing behind him and made a bizarre diagonal run going away from goal, but also penetrating through the back line. Tyler Adams slipped McKennie in with a through ball, and just before the ball reached the goal line, he managed to get a cross-off to Matt Miazga, who headed the ball onto Nicolas Gioacchini, who then scored with his head. This kind of dynamic movement is something we haven't always seen from the US in the past. And it's good to see that now we have players who understand that moving off the ball doesn't have to be about getting into a place to receive the ball. It's also about dragging defenders out of the way and creating space for your other teammates. The third one is transitions. It's common knowledge in soccer that the time that a team is most vulnerable to conceding a goal is right after they have lost possession. Guys like Jose Mourinho have used this tactic incessantly to be successful, even at the highest levels. But it's especially true in CONCACAF when you're facing a packed defense. When they have the occasional foray, the occasional attack towards your goal, they're going to start shifting into an attacking shape. When you win that ball back, sometimes the instinct with possession-based teams is to want to reorganize and structure themselves into an attacking possession shape before going forward. This allows the defense to retreat once again to set up their low block and park the bus, and makes it even more difficult for you to get through. So when you win that ball, there's a high chance that team is not going to be very organized defensively, at least not right away. And you have to take advantage of the 3 to 4 seconds before they get reorganized to try to penetrate their back line, to try to counterattack quickly. Even if you're a possession team, which is what Berhalter wants us to be, it's important to understand the advantages of playing a transition game, especially when you're playing a packed defense away on the road. Those transition moments might be one of the few opportunities you get to score. And if you don't take advantage of them, you put yourself and your team and ultimately your World Cup qualifying hopes at a disadvantage. Number 4 is movements against the grain. Now, like I said earlier, when you're playing a low block, you're often coming up against a team that has 2 lines of 4 or 5 sitting in front of their own goal. As you shift the ball from right to left on the field, the opposing defense shifts together in a block, left to right, keeping the spaces between them small so that it's difficult for you to penetrate through their back lines. This is where movements against the grain matter. While the defense is adapting to your movement of the ball from right to left, you need to have players in that block playing between the lines, moving the opposite direction of the ball. So for example, if the ball is being sent out wide to Serginho Dest on the right, you want guys like Reyna and Josh Sargent moving left. Why? It confuses the defense. Are they supposed to follow the movements of the ball, or are they supposed to follow the movements of the player? They'll constantly have their heads on a swivel trying to figure out what the attackers are doing, and they won't always be clued into the movement of the ball. One way or another, it confuses the defense and forces them to have to monitor 2 movements of direction simultaneously. It's this kind of movement against the grain of play that makes life really difficult for defenders and opens up spaces and opportunities for you to penetrate that back line and get goal scoring opportunities. Interchanging positions. This is pretty straightforward. Defending teams will often focus in on your most dangerous players. Guys will be instructed to mark Pulisic, Reyna, Weston McKennie, Josh Sargent, and they will mostly understand that that player plays in a certain position. But interchanging position makes it difficult. So if Reyna is playing in the middle and Pulisic is playing wide, as Pulisic drifts inside, Reyna goes outside. That makes it tough for the right back. Does he follow Pulisic or does he stay with Reyna? In the confusion, spaces are often created. We saw this in the last Gold Cup with Paul Arriola and Christian Pulisic interchanging effectively between central and wide positions to create space. But now we have even more dynamic players who can do that. Tim Weah can start wide and drift inside. Reyna can start wide and drift inside as well. Reyna can start inside and drift to the right or the left. Even between Reyna and Josh Sargent, Reyna can make hard runs in behind while Josh Sargent comes deep to hold off the ball. Yunus Musa, Weston McKennie, Serginho Dest, Anthony Robinson, all of these guys need to be constantly interchanging position. In the past, interchanging positions wasn't always as easy for the US because a lot of our guys didn't have what I call 360-degree technique. That's an ability to control the ball and get out of danger with either foot in any position. A lot of these guys can now interchange with fluidity, not only because of their technique and their tactical understanding of the game, but because they know that it will drag players out of position and create confusion when they're trying to mark a certain player. Number 6 is counterpressing. This is very similar to the transitions game, but it's also different. Counterpressing refers to when you lose the ball trying to get it back immediately. It's different than pressing, which is when the other team has clear possession of the ball and you move forward into a pressing formation in order to try to win it back. Counterpressing refers to the first 2 or 3 seconds after you lose the ball and the team is trying to get into an attacking shape. If you win the ball in those first few seconds, the opponents will already be moving into an attacking shape, meaning that you can then exploit space the way you do on a transition to get in behind their back lines. They will be vulnerable to a counter press because they were just in a defensive shape, they've won possession of the ball, and now they're trying to move out of that defensive shape into a more attacking formation. If you counter press them, you catch them off guard, and you create more opportunities for shots on goal. Number 7 is set pieces. The US has always used set pieces very, very effectively because some of our players lack technique. And when you have athletic, strong, tall players who lack elite technique, set pieces are a great way to go. Even though we now have very technical players, set pieces are still a fantastic way to score goals. First of all, we have the guys to win set pieces. Reyna, Weston McKennie, Christian Pulisic, Josh Sargent, Serginho Dest, and others will be fouled over and over again in CONCACAF. Guys like Reyna can deliver set pieces extremely well. Then you have guys like John Brooks, Aaron Long, Matt Miazga, Weston McKennie, Josh Sargent, and others who are good at getting in the box, getting high, and finishing set pieces off. Attacking set pieces is one of the basic fundamental principles of soccer, but if you have the players who can do it, then it is another weapon in your arsenal, especially on rough, bumpy surfaces in CONCACAF, on the road, where the grass is long. It doesn't always lend itself well to fluid interchange of play. Set pieces is another way that you can really hurt the team. Really important in all of this is a team's ability to keep their composure. When the opponent is trying to frustrate you, it's very important that you stay calm and use the anger that you feel against a team that will constantly kick and pinch and bite and pull and claw and do everything they can to frustrate you. Use that anger to attack them on the field. There are guys in our ranks who are still young. We also have attackers like Christian Pulisic and Reyna who have a tendency to get frustrated when things aren't going their way. The important thing is to stay calm, to keep your composure, because once you've lost your head, you make poor decisions, your technique is affected, and you can even risk getting sent off and hurting the team. If I'm Gregg Berhalter, I'm spending a fair bit of time talking about composure with the team before we go on those away games in CONCACAF and stressing to the team how much it matters to keep our cool when CONCACAF defenses pull out their dirty tricks. All right, guys, that's it for now. Thanks so much for watching. A huge shout out to all of our Patreons who made this video possible. Seriously, guys, I could not take the time that I take to make these videos if you guys weren't on Patreon, so massive shout out to all of you. Have a great week, everyone. Leave your thoughts in the comments, and I will see you next Tuesday.